you've deliberately picked on one example, and that is Jesus Christ, the prophet of God. Before that, there were many other prophets that Christians also believe in, such as the prophets of the Old Testament, who launched wars, who were kings, King Solomon, King David. Hold on, Douglas, I'm making a point here, which is that prophets during those times, some of them fought, some of them didn't fight, some of them it's disputed whether they fought. The point is that all religions are interpreted. We can't say here that Islam is one thing or another.
But Jesus' message is very clear.
Hello, welcome to my YouTube channel. Hope you are feeling good. Today we are here again with another video titled Christ is Different. Douglas Murray schools Muslim scholar on the Bible. Wow, I believe this is going to be another interesting one. So let's check it out. Go.
Douglas Murray, is there a problem actually in the Holy Book, in the faith, or is the problem in some of those, like this gentleman, and their interpretation of it?
Well, we're very lucky that most Muslims don't think anything like Anjem Chowdhury, or we'd really be in trouble. Most Muslims, both in Britain and across the world, are law-abiding, decent people for whom their faith is an important part of their lives. However, there is an awkward thing about Islam, which is that Islam's religion, its founder, was a more violent man than, for instance, the founder of Christianity. I'd give you an example. I mean, if Christ, I'm not a Christian, but I have no truck in this thing, but if Christ had been a warrior, had killed people he captured, Christianity's history would be even more violent than it has been. I'd give you one other example. When a woman is brought in adultery to Jesus, he says, he who's without sin casts the first stone. When Muhammad has a woman brought in adultery to him, he orders her to be stoned. This would be a very different outcome. Now, fortunately, as I say, there's no doubt about this, about the nature of Muhammad as a beginner of a religion. There's no doubt about that, but there is also no doubt about the fact, as I say, that most Muslims don't behave in that way. Because religion is open.
Sorry, Douglas, that's untrue. It's untrue. You've deliberately picked on one example, and that is Jesus Christ, the prophet of God. Before that, there were many other prophets that Christians also believe in, such as the prophets of the Old Testament, who launched wars, who were kings, King Solomon, King David. Hold on, Douglas, I'm making a point here, which is that prophets during those times, some of them fought, some of them didn't fight, some of them it's disputed whether they fought. The point is that all religions are interpreted. We can't say here that Islam is one thing or another.
But Jesus' message is very clear. He never said to stone anyone to death, Jesus, did he?
I think it's disputed, even the fact that the Prophet Muhammad stoned people to death. That's not a fact. That's not a fact.
But yeah, you can admit it. Harris Rafiq.
Yeah, just a couple of points. First of all,
did the Prophet order people to be stoned to death?
Right, okay. That case itself was where the woman insisted that she had punishment. There was one case where the woman was stoned, and that was when she came to the Prophet Muhammad, peace upon him, and said, I have committed adultery. The Prophet, peace upon him, turned his face away. She asked him again, I've committed adultery. Only when she asked the third time for a punishment was the punishment insisted on. That is the only
Should he not have still said no?
I beg your pardon?
Should he not have still said no?
No, she's...
Douglas Murray, in his discussion with a Muslim scholar, makes a crucial point about the foundational differences between Christianity and Islam, particularly focusing on the lives and actions of their respective founders. Murray highlights that while both religions have significantly shaped human history and society, their influences are markedly different due to the contrasting nature of Jesus Christ and Muhammad. Jesus Christ, the central figure of Christianity, is widely recognized as a man of peace. One of the most profound examples of this is the New Testament story where Jesus encounters a woman accused of adultery. According to the law of the time, she was to be stoned to death. However, Jesus responds with unparalleled compassion and wisdom, saying, "Let any one of you who is without sin be the first to throw a stone at her." This moment not only illustrates Jesus' rejection of violence, but also his emphasis on forgiveness, mercy, and self-reflection. In contrast, Muhammad, the founder of Islam, is historically noted for his role as a military leader. While he also preached messages of faith and moral conduct, his life involved numerous battles and the establishment of Islamic rule through conquest. This stark difference in the lives of Jesus and Muhammad inevitably shapes the core values and historical trajectories of their respective religions. Murray's analysis draws attention to how these foundational figures influence their followers and the broader societal norms. For instance, Christianity's emphasis on forgiveness and peace has often led to charitable acts, social reforms, and movements for justice and equality. The Christian doctrine of turning the other cheek and loving one's enemies has been a guiding principle for many, including notable figures like Martin Luther King Jr., who championed nonviolent resistance. On the other hand, the more martial aspects of Muhammad's life have sometimes been interpreted by extremists to justify violence.
And if I can say so, I mean, I couldn't agree with that more. The great achievement of Western European civilization in the last few hundred years, the Enlightenment, the ability to not have rules based on people pointing to a verse in a holy book that you may not think is a holy book and saying you have to live your life by the law because of this verse. We've managed to get away from that, and as the gentleman in the front row here has shown, it's very important that Islam also gets away from that. If that happens, it can be a guide to your life, but not the legal nightmare which people like Mr. Chowdhury would have us live in.
Just a point of fact, Nikki, that in fact Muslims never had that problem throughout the whole of history. The Sharia wasn't implemented on a state level. It's the modern politicized Islamist movement that people like Chowdhury represent that is now calling for the politicization of Islam. And I'd just like to remind Douglas as well, the author of Neoconservatism, Why We Need It, that it was Bush who said, you're with us or against us and not God. And that's an important point. Because
Mr. Bush did not say so on behalf of God.
And you're a former radical yourself.
Because he launched it in the name of God. So
and you are a former radical yourself, but I've
never been to prison
yes.
for it.
Last question.
Yes.
Douglas Murray suggests that Islam might benefit from a reformation similar to the one Christianity underwent during the Enlightenment and the formation of the Church of England, which helped to disentangle religious authority from state governance. The Enlightenment, a period marked by intellectual and philosophical advancements in the 17th and 18th centuries, laid the groundwork for modern democratic societies. It emphasized reason, individualism, and skepticism of traditional authority, leading to significant societal shifts. One of its key outcomes was the separation of church and state, ensuring that religious institutions did not wield political power, thereby fostering an environment where diverse religious beliefs could coexist and be debated openly. Murray's praise for this separation highlights its critical role in creating societies where freedom of speech and religious tolerance are foundational values. In contrast, Islamic countries that adhere strictly to Sharia law often limit such freedoms. Sharia, a legal system derived from the Quran and Hadith, governs many aspects of daily life, including politics, economics, and personal conduct. In these countries, questioning religious doctrines or advocating for secularism can lead to severe repercussions. The call for a reformation within Islam echoes historical precedents in Christianity. The Protestant Reformation in the 16th century, initiated by figures like Martin Luther, challenged the Catholic Church's authority, leading to significant religious and political changes. Similarly, the establishment of the Church of England in the 16th century under Henry VII marked a significant move towards reducing the Church's power over the state, paving the way for a more secular governance structure. Historical data supports Murray's argument. For instance, countries that underwent Enlightenment-driven reforms generally score higher on indices measuring democratic governance, human rights, and economic development. According to the Economist Intelligence Unit's Democracy Index, predominantly secular Western countries like Norway, Sweden, and the Netherlands consistently rank as the most democratic, whereas countries with strong religious governance tend to score lower. Moreover, public opinion within some Muslim-majority countries shows a growing desire for reform. Surveys conducted by the Pew Research Center indicate that a significant number of Muslims in countries like Indonesia and Turkey support democratic principles and believe that Islam should adapt to modern times. This suggests a potential for change from within, driven by a younger, more globalized generation.
Wow, what an interesting answer from Douglas Murray. You can tell the debate was really engaging, and I've learned a lot just by listening to Douglas and everyone among the panel. Just by the title, Christ is Different. Douglas Murray, Schools Muslim scholar on the Bible. Is Islam an intolerant religion? And watching the video, we can tell Douglas made stated some facts that Muhammad, which happened to be the founder of Islam religion, is a warrior, someone that always fights, whereas Christ, who is the leader of Christianity, is someone that is very peaceful. He even gave some example of the instance where a woman was brought to Jesus, and Jesus told them that if anyone has no sin, should cast the first stone. And at the end of the day, no one was able to cast the stone. And that same instance happened in Islam, where a woman was brought to Muhammad, and according to one of the speaker in the panel, she said the woman asked the first time, nothing was done to her. She asked the second time, nothing was done to her, but after asking the third time, she was asked to be stoned to death. And a lot of those Muslim people, most especially those violent people, they tend to try to emulate Prophet Muhammad, and they pick certain verses in the Bible and try to use those verses for their own selfish motive. And at the end of the day, they use the Quran to justify what they are doing, which I believe is very right. And I also believe the problem is not just from the religion. The problem is also from interpretation, because I understand a lot of people interpret the Quran in their own way. So I believe the problem is not only inherent in the religion, the problem is also in the interpretation, because there are a lot of Muslims in which I know, and they are very peaceful people, they are very gentle people, and nevertheless, there are still few Muslims that are very violent. And both the peaceful people and the violent people, they are all reading the same verse from the Quran. But the problem is interpretation. You see, the violent people tend to interpret it to justify their own evil motives, which I believe is very wrong. And that's why in this video, Douglas Murray is speaking, if it's possible that a reform can be made in Islam, whereas a reform can be made in Islam, whereby the violent verses or the verses that this evil people have been using to carry out their agenda, if the verses can be reviewed, if possible. I believe that is the point Douglas is trying to express in this video. I've really learned a lot just by watching this video, by watching Douglas speak. So I also love to hear your comments. Let's get a conversation rolling. Don't forget, click on the subscribe button, click on the like button. Do have a nice day.
Yeah.